All right, thank you, Dr. Thompson. You mentioned everyone but Coach Rod, but no, Coach Rod said absolutely nothing last podcast, folks. As we say in the Caribbean, the boy a wetless. Good Lord. Folks, welcome to Black Dad Unfiltered. Again, reminding everyone, if this is your first time hearing us, the purpose of this podcast is to create a media platform that presents black men and fathers in a positive light with the hope of reestablishing the family and the community. All right, so with that being said, this fancy looking brother here who told me to bring a tracksuit but wore a suit, my partner, Carlos V. Spencer.
He's starting already. That's all right. We're going to have a good time.
Let's go, let's go, let's grow, let's grow, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's go, let's go, let's grow, let's grow, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's get it, let's go, let's go.
So I'm Carlos V. Spencer. We're here with Black Dad Unfiltered again. I'm here with my guy,
Coach Rod, trying to change the narrative of black men and black fathers through authentic conversation. What we got on deck today, Los?
Man, on deck, we dealt with relationships before, but now we're going to deal more with that relationship, an actual relationship. When we're talking about a marital relationship, or you and your spouse, you and your other, maybe that's dating. And we have some wonderful couples here, some who have been married for a good amount of time. We're going to share that knowledge where I'm going to be listening. I'm going to get my pen out, put my pen down. And we have another couple who's been married an earlier stage, but I've watched them and I've seen them, and I'm going to put some pressure on them, but I've seen them operate in spaces that I have not seen couples who've been married 10 and 15 years are not able to do. So we're going to get both of those dynamics. One thing I'm also going to ask in this panel as well at some point, relationship and business, because the couples up here as well are in business. They've done business and they're doing business, and entrepreneurs just the same. So dealing with relationships, the nuances and difficulties and beauties that comes with all of that. And we're going to dive into it and see where this conversation goes. What do you think, Coach?
I think it's important, even for our panelists to hear, then introduce yourselves, some of the why of why me and Carlos got into this. We're both fathers I'm a father of three. Carlos is a father of plural, which means a lot. Yeah. 5 kids.
5. All by one woman. Don't judge me.
But 5 kids.
I feel it. You're hating.
But
already.
with that being said,
right.
we also are both divorced. I was married for 20 years. Mm-hmm. Right, and that's given me a lot of opportunity to reflect and try to understand. So we're actually going to add that perspective as well. So we're learning from here. 100%. But one of the things with Black Dad, why we got started, was when we started seeing what media was doing and how it was impacting our children, it caused us to also look at ourselves and say, how has this affected us from our youth, from the inputs that came into us? And then we started asking ourselves, well, how does this show up in our relationships now? Because you don't know what you don't know. Is this making sense? Mm-hmm. I didn't know what I didn't know. So part of the reason why this is important to us, because to heal, to create a positive perspective, we got to first heal, understand. So hopefully this takes us down this whole, spectrum. Yeah. From who I was before relationship to getting married and who I am while I'm still in a relationship. And for those who are no longer in it, who am I now? Mm-hmm. And how do I get better? So if we can start this way, work our way. Yep. Beauty before age, let's go.
Say that again.
I said beauty before age, let's go.
Okay, I'm good with that. Hello, everybody. My name is Damaris Johnson. As Carlos just said, we are entrepreneurs, we're coaches, we're pastors. My wife, Les, and I like to say we're in our 30th year of marriage. She like to say 29. We just had our 29th anniversary on May 18th. And so that's what we do. I appreciate that. We have a coaching business where we coach couples, and we've been doing that for over 20 years. And just bringing couples into the experience that we believe God wanted us to have. We are faith-based, Bible-based marriage coaches, and we really believe in that. We've experienced it, we've lived it. And so we're just here to share our experiences, our expertise, and what it is that we know will help you have the marriage that you desire. Because one of the models is nobody gets married to get divorced. We know it happens, but there's reasons why it happened. And so we try to eliminate those reasons as best as possible.
And ditto everything he said, but he neglected to say we have 3 children, 2 grandchildren, and we are in business together. Yes, we have a business. He's had another business before, but now we're in another business. And that's a wrap for me.
My name is Julissa Vasquez Copeland. I am an entrepreneur. I also work 9 to 5. I am a wife, a dog mom, and yeah, that's it.
Hello. Good evening.
Is it me you're looking for?
Good morning. How's it going, everybody? My name is Gene Copeland. I am the founder of Next Level Bootcamp. I've been a health and wellness coach for the last 12 years. Honored to be a part of this panel. My good brother over here said, come on. I aspire to be like this guy over here to my left. Super thankful to be here with them. And Jaleesa and I have been married for 3 years, and hoping that we can give you all, we're on our 3rd year. They're on their 30th. And so, we're honored to be here and share some of the things that we've learned. And thank you all for having us.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see here and hear here as well is that's why we wanted this. We wanted to see the dynamics of the long-lasting marriage. We want to see the dynamics of the marriage that's just been in a couple years. You may be in one of those sides, or you may be trying to get there at some point. So I think we're going to hear some great information and to actually learn that.
Yeah. So we got some questions.
Yes.
There's one question I want to kick off, and this is to everyone. What's one lesson about love, partnership, or compromise you wish you had learned sooner?
He came out guns blazing. He said compromise.
I'm
to
going to ask that
married
again
folk.
because the audience is go, ooh. Help me out here, folks, okay? I'm going to ask this again. What's one lesson about love, partnership, or compromise you wish you had learned sooner?
What's up? We are Black Dad Unfiltered. We are here to change the narrative through authentic conversation for black men, and particularly black fathers. We thank you for joining us here on this episode. Please like the channel, subscribe to the channel, send a comment to the channel. Let us know the information that you like. Let us know what's speaking towards you. We'll be sure to stay in touch with you as well. Thank you.
Again, what's one lesson about love, partnership, or compromise you wish you had learned sooner?
She opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. Proverbs 31:26.
Elaborate.
When we first got married,
Can I set this up? Oh, wait, what would you say when you first got
when we
married?
first got married,
Go ahead.
I was like,
Oh, okay. Yeah. See,
Yeah.
Leslie
You
grew up
don't
in a
have-
household
It
where
was
mama
very
ran everything.
argumentative.
And mama ran everything. I'm talking about from A to Z, and she was can I say dictatorian? Can I use that word? Is that too strong? That's a little strong, but that was what she grew up in, and that was her way of, and her parents stayed married. Well, how long was Nani and Papa married? Almost 40 years. They was married 40 years, right? And then he went home to be with the Lord, but that's what she saw in her household, which as I mentioned before, what we wouldn't categorize as a faith-based, Bible-based, functional marriage. But that's what she knew. I knew what I knew, which was dysfunction when it came to a marriage. My mother and father stayed married, but it was very dysfunctional. And so we come together, I guess, how God brought us together, we got to talk about that. Well, I was playing professional football, and I was like, we had been dating 4.5 years, and I was a rascal. That's all I'm going to say. I was just rascal.
And he told me I could hang out with
ain't
him
gotta say
until
all
he's
that.
like 36, 37, 38. And I was like, no, I'm out.
So
I'm
so
not
I
going
was
to be your girlfriend for 20 years.
right. I was in Miami. She was back in Chicago, and so I would bring her to Florida. She would come down to Florida. We do what we do, but she would go back, and then I was still playing, and it was just I was about me, and I didn't know God. Grew up completely unchurched, didn't know nothing about the Bible or anything like that. And then Leslie wrote me a letter that going into my 3rd year, was it my 2nd or 3rd year? I think it was my 2nd year, 3rd year, going into my 3rd year in Miami. And the letter she wrote me was an expression of her disappointment, her frustration, and how much I had hurt her, having made her all of these promises since we were in college together. And I was in Miami, again, just living how I wanted to live. And then at the same time, I was looking to advance my career with the Dolphins, and it didn't go the way I wanted it to go. Then I had this letter, and we was in training camp, and I could feel the pain in Leslie's letter. And so when I carried that letter around, because we was in training camp, and I carried that letter around, I went back home, got my mail, took it back to the hotel, and I kept it with me because I could see the tears and the hurt and the pain that she was experiencing. And it touched me because I did love her. I did care about her. I didn't tell her that. I had vowed never to love again.
he didn't.
I had vowed never to love another woman again because I thought I was in love when I was in the 9th grade and the girl.
Yeah,
girl
yeah,
left me out the
yeah,
See what
yeah.
happened?
Now you're preaching, right?
Right?
If I see her today, boy.
Yeah, I got some
Well, go
words for
ahead.
her. So, but I had vowed never to love again, and so I would never tell her that, even though I was with her for 4.5 years. But short of it is, her letter, and then me not accomplishing the goal that I wanted to accomplish as a professional athlete, it touched my heart. And I had a teammate of mine who was a pastor named Irvin Fryer. Oh. And my locker was right next to his, and he used to blast praise and worship music all the time. And so I had no experience with it. And then finally, he invited the whole team out to church. And he was preaching his trial sermon at this church, and the whole team went out. And me not being a church person, didn't care about going, I showed up late, right? Unfortunately, they announced that all the Miami Dolphins would be there, so the place was packed out. And there was only one seat left in the whole place. And it was the seat Irvin had got out of to go preach. So they set me, you know, when you go in the Baptist church, you don't get to sit where you want to sit.
No, you can't do that.
They ushered me right down to the front of the row. And it felt like Irvin was talking to me. And the title of his message was Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places. And that's what I was living at the time. And between that message and that letter, and the letter Leslie wrote me, which I still have to this day, I went home, and that was on a Sunday night. I went home, listened to that tape because I made Irvin give me the tape, read Leslie's letter, did that all night, and then at 11:30 on that next Monday morning, I sat up on the edge of my bed. I said, God, I know this is you. What must I do to be the man you want me to be? I'm tired of trying to be the man I want to be. And instantly, I had never heard the voice of God before. I heard a voice from the outside say, call Leslie, tell her you love her, tell her you're going to be with her, tell her you're going to marry her. So I moved right away. I called her. I said, Leslie, I got something I need to say to you. She said, what? She had thought it was going to be another. You want to take that part? Go ahead.
Come on, Leslie, tell it.
She's like, no, you're doing good. You telling on yourself real well. Go ahead.
We on the edge of our seats. We want to hear it, Leslie.
Okay, so when we were in college, he would just say things just off the cuff, and then he didn't really mean it. So he used to play a lot of mind games with me. So I was like, yeah, right. He said, God told me to call you and tell you that I love you, and I'm going to marry you, and I'm going to answer all the questions in your letter. And I was stunned because in 5 years, he never said a word about God. And I was like, here he goes with the phone away from me, playing games again. And I didn't say anything. And he was like, hello.
Talking about dead silent.
Hello.
Nothing.
Do you hear me? And I said, yeah, I hear you. And he was like, well, call me back later. When you
I said, you don't have to answer me now.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, that was my proposal. You don't have to answer me now. Call back. Yeah, I ain't know nothing about proposal. That was my proposal at the time.
He was telling me what he was going to do. He didn't ask me.
I was like, I said, think about it, call me back. And she said, okay, but when I hung up the phone, I experienced new birth. I was born again, and I was set free. I was running around my room, jumping, screaming, crying, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. Yeah, not knowing what I was free from, and then I'm like, free? I ain't never been no slave. Why? What I mean, free? And then that's when I heard the voice of God from the inside say, no, you are free. You're free. And at the time, I didn't know I was free from the sin nature. And then the thing that's most important is, in that moment, I felt the love of God come into my heart like nothing ever before. And my whole body began to quake and shiver. And the love of God. And then he gave me a love for Leslie like I had never known before. And that was the initiation of this process we've gone through for the past 30 years, that we've been able to communicate with everybody else and put it in a language where it's practical, where it's acceptable, where it's easy, where they can adopt it and live from it and have the experiences that we've had over the past 30 years. And I shared all that because of what? I was trying to make a point.
Because the question was...
Yes, there you go.
Well, it's a podcast. That was in Black Dad Unfiltered on relationships and no.
All right. No, but the question was if I can remember, it was what was one lesson?
Yes.
And we quoted the scripture from Proverbs, and I had asked you to elaborate.
Yes.
And then the Spirit took over your husband.
Yes,
right?
that non-efficiency spirit.
Lack of words.
No, but this is good. But if you can you expand on the scripture?
Yeah, so going back to the scripture, when we were first married, he explained to you the type of household we grew up in, and they both were dysfunctional in their own way. And my mom did run everything, and she kind of told my dad what to do, and he was like, whatever. You know, he would just sit down and say, okay. And I kind of took on that persona without even thinking about it, because you're a product of your environment. And so we had to go through like a purging process of me not doing that. And I used to watch this one minister all the time, and she always talked about that scripture. And once I really marinated in it and it got in me, I realized that not talking was probably the best way to go with him. So, and that may not be everyone's recipe, but that was our recipe. You know, I just wouldn't even say anything. But because he went through the new birth that he went through, it allowed me not to say anything. And when I took myself out of the equation, that was when God was able to deal with him. Because I took myself out and didn't try to defend myself. God was my defense. And then in that way, that's where she opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. I wouldn't come back at him when he would do things. And, you know, we were early in our marriage, too. But I would just stop talking, and then I would let God deal with him. And every time I didn't try to defend myself, he would come back and apologize and say, you know, I couldn't even pray today because God was like, you better go apologize to her. And I was like, praise God.
No, but it's important, right?
Yeah.
She opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongues is the law of kindness, right?
Correct.
And you said you almost have to know the person to know which tool, what mechanism to deploy in that moment. And sometimes not defending yourself is not opening yourself to getting, harassed or beaten down. It's actually opening up the marriage to let something greater than both of you do the intercession, right?
Amen.
All right. So the question still is apropos.
Yes.
You don't remember? I need to read it again?
One more time.
We know what we're doing, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Back there, I'm expecting to hear you too. All right, my Morgan Freeman voice. As Coach Rod read, he said, what's one lesson about love, partnership, or compromise you wished you had learned sooner?
I would say for us, I would say for me personally, I struggled, and sometimes still do, I struggle with uncommunicated expectations. And yeah.
You're like, God's not telling you expound, right? You're just like,
Yeah, it's just having uncommunicated expectations, thinking that she should just know.
yeah.
We've been together for X amount of time. You should just know what I need. And I would say in the early phase, we're only on year number 3, but this is something that we're doing a lot better at. But it's definitely a lesson that I wish that I would have maybe grasped a little bit early, maybe year 1, year 2. And now going into year 3, we're approaching year 4 in May. Just learning how to communicate what I need, learning how to communicate what my expectations are, and also giving her the space to communicate what she needs.
Sure.
The space to communicate her expectations.
Los, can I dive in a little deeper? Because with that communication, and I used to teach a course when I was an adjunct lecturer. So communication is less the words. Like communication is actually 70% of the words, right? So what you say is only 7% of actual communication. So not only communicating, but I'm asking you, did you work on how you want to be communicated to? So it's easy for me to say, these are my expectations. But if you grew up in a dysfunctional environment that makes you feel like, hey, stop yelling at me or whatever. Like, how's that work?
Yeah, so
did that make sense?
Yes, 100%. So for us, we have had conversations where I would ask her, how do you want me to communicate this to you when I'm feeling X, Y, Z?
Oh, does that work?
100%
That
for
works.
us. For us. She
I
knows.
haven't mastered it yet, but we
Yeah, no,
practicing.
far from mastery. But we've learned, what space do I come and bring you an issue? Her being able to be observant, right? One of our big things that we say is, did you read the room? right? We're big readers of each other's energy. If she notices that I'm in a space, whether it's business, whether it's life stuff, she'll know, I may feel a type of way about something, but maybe this is not the right time for me to communicate this.
Right, but with that comes a lot of self-awareness to be able to realize, like, you're in a space and this other person is not in a space to receive it. Like, how I'm saying this and what you might hear may not be received. So I think it's also realizing that there's a lot of self-awareness that we have to also bring into that.
That goes back to what you're saying, kind of
The
sometimes.
wisdom piece.
Yeah,
The wisdom
and to be
piece.
still sometimes.
Yeah.
Not everything that you want to say has to be said.
Now, how about you? I wasn't there in year 3. I wasn't there. That wasn't me. So, it's right. A lot of couples,
So,
don't
I
think
mean,
did
I
that.
was, because I was pretty dope. I'm just going to call it as I see it, folks. You know what I
Coach
mean?
Rod is very humble, isn't he, guys?
I am, but I will speak now. But in all seriousness, that leads to my next question, right? It's what happens when you're not even, right? What happens when you're not on the same level of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, communication skills, right?
So ours is super simple. I went to therapy on Thursday. I go once a month. I literally, and Los knows this, our relationship, I say, Jaleesa, what do you want me to talk to him about? I say, what do you want me to talk to the man about in our relationship? I know what I feel like I'm struggling with, but I go to her and say, am I missing something? What is something that you maybe see that I should say, hey, Jaleesa's tripping about this. I don't know. What do you think? Right? And I've been able to go to her and say, hey, I talked to Tom about bop, 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 bop. And then she'll say, well, what do you think? And we're able to talk about things that were either bothering her, that maybe we didn't see eye to eye about. And so that is kind of how we've been finding that we've been able to kind of level things out where we're not always on the same page. There's a lot of things that, she may not like or I may not like. And so I'm open to what issues do you have or how can I be better for you? Go ahead.
So prior to us getting married, I had done a lot of self-work on myself, recognizing my own traumas, recognizing the things that I had gone through, and also learning like coping mechanisms where my husband hadn't yet. And so when we got into relationship or marriage, I remember just asking God, like, I need this not self-awareness, but this emotional intelligence that he was working on but hadn't mastered yet. And I remember God saying to me specifically that although he is not that yet, he will be. And I had to come into my marriage already had worked on this because as his wife, I was going to lead in that space so that he saw what that looked like so that he would also want to achieve those things. So I've had to be a lot more patient.
Super patient. Very,
that
very
area.
much so not emotionally mature. And I think not to, throw any guys underneath the bus, but we don't always know how to express. We just keep things in or feel like the woman that we're with doesn't care.
Yeah.
And so I struggle with that greatly, just holding things in. She's like, you need to work on this.
So, and I want to get to you, all right? So I'm going to tee up my question and give you time to think about it. And Los, and then I'm going to hand it over to you. What does a successful marriage look like, and has that evolved over time? So I'm going to give you time to marinate on that. But there's something that you said that almost, when I heard it, triggered me. And I said, oh, shoot, maybe I'm not as dope as I think I am, right? When you came to her and she says, well, what do you think about that? And immediately I'm like this, oh, you trying to set me up, right? I think that's the natural, response. So how did you develop the trust to know that when she gives you this, self-reflective question, well, what do you think he means by that? That you're like, this is for the benefit of a relationship, and this is not someone that's trying to, pin things I say against me in the future or things of that nature. So how did you build that level of trust to say, okay, whatever comes out of this, tough or not, is for us to grow?
I would say you're asking how was I able to build the trust to be able to share how it made me feel?
Yeah.
Or when she would ask?
Yeah.
I'll be honest, initially defensive. It's like, I went to talk to him. Why are you asking me questions? I'm good. But after a while, I realized that, well, why am I getting defensive?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? It goes back to the self-awareness piece. Well, hey, if she just wants to know, learn how to use your words. learn how to express, learn how to say, yes, we talked about this. And I realized in the beginning it was very challenging for me. I'm like, all right, I need to keep going, right? And then her supporting me, it was never any, and to be honest, Jaleesa asking me to elaborate, I can't even really think of her even necessarily giving me feedback. It was more so her asking to hear me explain, her asking me to express so she can just listen.
Wow.
I've never felt like, well, are you going to change this now? She never gave me that energy, ever.
You go ahead, Julissa. All right.
Oh,
Give
yeah,
it up for you.
She is amazing, for sure. Yeah, so she always kind of gave me the space. And there may have been times where she's wise enough to say, all right, let me let you get it out. And then maybe 2 days later, hey, babe, so in this. And then she'll bring it up. And now, you know, she has the wisdom to be able to notice if I'm getting defensive or if I'm still trying to figure it out. I've had those moments too, where I'm like, he said that I need to work on this. So this is how I want you to support me in this. And her silence, even like Miss Leslie said, just her wisdom knowing when to speak, like how she said she was with Dee. Just knowing when to be like, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So that's, I think her silence is what helped build the trust. She was never combative or tried to like attack me in explaining.
So that silence was almost like space.
Silence was a space.
Wow.
Well, that fits the scripture where it says in Peter where he talks about you can win a man without words. But you don't have to use words to win him, or the idea of winning is to create the space or the atmosphere for us to function in the marriage like we're supposed to function, right? And that goes for the husband as well. That's not just for a wife, right? Your husband, you don't have to use words to win her. There's a way you could create a culture where it becomes an automatic response for her to respond in a manner that's conducive to the nature of the marriage. That's what I would say to that. To your question. So again, we take a very straight, Holy Spirit-led approach to marriage. And the ultimate way you would judge the success of a marriage, you have to be able to relate to, well, what's the goal for marriage? Like, what's God's goal for marriage? That's how you determine whether or not a marriage is successful. Most people we've encountered get married for the wrong reason, right? And this may sound contrarian, but
Go ahead, D, because if you hit him, you ain't trying to miss him.
we don't. Love and me loving you is a good reason or part of the process by which we get married, but God's stamp of approval and God's direction is why we get married. That's why. I know I love her and I feel good. Okay, great. Why you want to marry her? I'm looking for one answer, right? And that's what God has led me to marry her, inspired me to marry, whatever, however you relate to God. But that has to be the ultimate reason. Now we can talk about what's the purpose for God bringing us together. Well, we know the purpose, or how we define marriage, is a husband and a wife experiencing and enjoying the intimacies, the pleasures, the power, and the purpose of oneness. So oneness is the goal for marriage. Now, because we don't identify with oneness, we don't understand what oneness is, we don't understand the power of it, the prosperity of it, the promotion of it, we don't understand everything that's entailed in what oneness is, we don't even consider that to be a goal for marriage. But if we just understood everything you desire as a husband, everything you desire as a wife is bound in the concept of oneness. But because we don't understand that, we don't even see that as the goal. So the way we would define a successful marriage is how we come into this space of oneness spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, physically, economically. How do we come into this space of oneness? Well, what we've been able to do is create a mechanism that catapults husbands and wives into those heroic and wondrous roles that are empowerment roles that bring that oneness to their relationship that they desire but may not yet have the language to articulate it in that fashion, that it's oneness. But that's how we would define a successful marriage. One of the greatest compliments that you can have as a husband and a wife is when your wife is somewhere and you're not there, and the people who you're communicating with know you and they know her, and they say, you sound just like your husband. Or if I'm somewhere and they say, your wife said the same thing. Like, that's one of the greatest compliments you can have. But because we grew up in a society where you want to hold on to your identity and I want to hold on to my mind and you want to think, that's wrong. I don't know how I would say it when you look at it from a faith-based perspective. It's wrong. But success to me is when I'm with a couple and Jaleesa sounds just like Gene. Gene think the same way. Jaleesa said the same thing, Gene. That's success.
Do you want to chime in on what you, because the good part is we have 29 going to 30 years, right? So this is two-part, and I want to hear from you, Los, because I know people tired of hearing Coach Rod. He gave his definition. So we used to do an exercise in business where I would tell people, a man and woman look in the closet. Man says he has no clothes. Woman says she has no clothes. What did the woman mean? And studies, this is all based on studies. Woman meant that she had nothing new. Man meant he had nothing clean. Right? So I heard from your husband. Well, now I also want to hear from you, and not creating, but I want to, because some people may hear your words, even though you're giving the same message differently.
So oneness, I'm going to start with that.
Of course.
We define it, and we're marriage coaches, so we always define love or marriage with oneness, but I always say love will always think of the best in anything. So your success is based off how much love you have for your spouse and yourself. Because if you love your spouse like you love yourself, of course you're not going to mistreat them. So that's what my definition of success is outside of the oneness of marriage.
That sounds just like the marriage, didn't it? I'm just trying to tell you. I want to ask a question, too, while we're in the same space, because Jaleesa kind of alluded to something that is open to anyone to answer. You said you led in that space, in the emotional intelligence. Do we think as men that it's okay for our wives to lead us in certain spaces? Or do we feel like we always have to be the people to lead? And men, are we okay following when our wives or a significant other may be the person who leads in that space?
I think for me, with that example, I was self-aware enough to know that I lacked emotional maturity. And she's amazing in that space due to the work that she did, not just her telling me, I'm emotionally strong. No, I've seen her go to therapy. I've seen her come home and talk about the conversations. Also, Dee and Miss Leslie actually were our coaches. He helped us get married, right? And so being able to see examples of, couples that we admire, but also my parents divorced after 25 years. I saw what the lack of emotional maturity looked like. And so to see a emotional, mature woman, knowing that I lacked it, just like how my dad did, allowed me to say, you know what? I can follow your lead in this space. So it wasn't just like, oh, you're better, go ahead. No, it was more so me being aware enough to realize she's stronger here and she can help me be stronger.
Yeah, and that strikes at the core of this idea that the wife is the weaker vessel in the sense of weakness, in the sense of incapability, in the sense of not able to. When the Bible don't come close to even teaching that, we read into that because they use the phrase weaker, but that's just an allegorical way to describe the level of attention a weaker vessel deserves. It's not necessarily calling her a weaker vessel. If you understand the idea of the concept of help meet in the Bible, it literally means to stand opposite of and be able to look eyeball to eyeball. In other words, I'm not inferior to you at all. I'm not deficient at all. So her being called the help meet was God's way of saying, I'm going to give you someone that is equally as powerful, that's equally a leader, that's equally capable of functioning and operating in life as you are. So she's not a weaker vessel in the sense that she can't lead, she can't instruct, she can't guide, she can't do those things. It's in the sense of she deserves a level of intention that me as her husband should provide for her. That's what Peter was trying to bring out. She's not weak in the sense that she can't lead. And I always, we coach it like this. If you got a problem with her leading, then you're the problem. Let me talk to you as a husband. Because you need to become more confident. You need to be more bold. You need to understand who you are. I don't have a problem with Leslie telling me what to do. Not a problem at all. Like we were talking about one of the questions was something. I said, whatever she tell me to do, right? Because I'm 100% confident in who I am, what I've been able to accomplish, what I'm going to accomplish in life. So that like her being a leader, her being a guide, her taking it don't intimidate me, don't bother me one bit. But that question, Lo, speaks to now at the same time, she's very submissive. At the same time, she's very tenderhearted. At the same time, she's very pro-Damaris. She's here to serve me with all of her heart, with all of her might, in every way possible. So you have that balance there because of how she identifies as a lover, which is first and foremost, and how she learns to live from that space as one who loves in a wondrous way. So we start with that, from that premise. She kind of mentioned it in her own words as far as when she was asked about the question, and she talked about loving the way she wants to love, because she identifies as a lover. One of the first things when we sat down when I sat down with Brother Gene, I said, well, marriage is for a very specific class of people. It's not for everybody. When God created the concept, he created it for a very specific group of people. Marriage is made for lovers. And what do I mean by that? Marriage is made for those who identify as a lover. Like I identify as a competitive lover. I'm a competitive lover.
To the utmost.
Like you're not going to outlove me. You're not going to outlove me, right? And we can talk about, when Leslie mentioned that, like the idea of most folks don't grasp the comprehensive concept of what love is. We actually we wrote a book about, or not a book, but we did write a book, but it's a devotional called What Love Is. And we go through the different dynamics of how the Bible reveals love, right? And so once we see that and we're able to identify as a lover, why? Because I'm made in the image and likeness of God. God is love. Right. He is love. So I'm made in that image. We were baptized into the love of God. That's what new birth is all about, right? So we were created as lovers, we were born again as lovers, and we were baptized into the. So we function from the standpoint of love. If you don't identify as a lover and you don't live from the space as a lover, you're gonna struggle at being married, because marriage was made for lovers. So when you identify as a lover, now doing what a lover does becomes natural. Like I gotta try not to forgive Sister Leslie. I gotta try to hold on to stuff she did. I gotta try, I literally gotta try. Sometimes I get frustrated because I forget, man, I was supposed to be mad at you.
You gotta look at your wife like this. I ain't never done nothing wrong a day in my life. Try.
So,
you making up stuff.
Right. I'm but that's where it all starts. And that question Carlos proposed and Gene answered speak to the secular perspective of what marriage is supposed to look like. Mm-hmm. And again, all the studies, everything that psychological world, the clinical world has done, unfortunately, are 99% focused on the fallen man, not the redeemed man. And we get all of our stats and all of our statistics from studying the fallen man. Well, marriage wasn't made for that man. Marriage was made for the new creature. Now we got to study the new creature. How does the new creature love? What's the capacity of the new creature to fulfill the roles of marriage? Like, that's what we need to be studying. Once we study that, now that'll change a lot of the perspective that we get from secular society. But they're going to do what they want to do. It's the church that we're focused on, right? We have to understand, how does the new creature focus and formulate its opinions and its thoughts and its perspectives on how to love? Because that's who marriage is made for, that the new creature in Christ. So we focus on those things, and we have the same. We can basically eliminate 99% of marital problems in one move. You identifying as a lover, because now everything else falls in place. But when you're on this side looking at it, it's like, man, that's hard. Oh man, I can't do that. Oh man, I don't know about that. Oh, that's too much, D. You're on the wrong side. You got to see from a different lens. Most of us are looking at marriage from an unrenewed mind perspective. Until you renew your mind on who you are, the self-awareness, which is one of my questions. If I was sitting down with, then they know that they would, when they bring up the idea of being self-aware, well, self-aware about what? Like, who are you? Are you relating more to who you were in Adam as a sinner or who you are in Christ as the righteous? Who are you relating to? Which one are you more self-aware of? That's major. I'm just talking about that's major for life. But I'm just in this particular niche of marriage, that's major. How do you identify? If you still identify with who you were in Adam, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard.
Let me
It's
say
gonna
this,
be hard.
somebody. I will say I once heard it said too, D, when you made that phrase, the weaker vessel. One of my mentors once said, the weaker vessel is the more delicate vessel. So it's like you don't take a crystal vessel and put it on the edge of a table because it's delicate, it's special. So you take care of it. I'm about to stir the pot though. If somebody got something to go say, Gene, you got something? Because I'm about to stir it real bad
No, I
too.
want to touch on.
I'm about to
Gene.
stir it real, but you better go ahead before I say it.
Gene,
Go ahead.
I want to touch on something you said, right?
Gene was about to say something though, Coach Rod.
I was just going to say that this intensity that he is right now is how he was in marriage counseling too.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, we were as he said, on the other side. I still have moments where I be like, D, I know you said, but it's a little, but I think being around, and this is where, I'm sure we'll talk about it, having mentors and people to be around, right? Where I can be around this and he can remind me of, you're supposed to be a lover, supposed to be a lover. Why are you identifying as this? Why are you allowing this to, and so we definitely were on the other side. And I'm still working on getting on the side that he's on.
He getting there.
But I love it.
It's that competitive lover, and
Well, everything starts with being.
everything is a competition.
Yeah, everything starts with our being. Like we go all the way back to Genesis. Everything starts with who you be. Is that a double negative? The sister's talking about the double.
But you be okay here with that.
Everything starts with who you be. Like, who are you? I'm a lover. I'm a lover. I'm a lover, and I love identifying as a lover. And I'm gonna be the best lover, like known to man. I'm like, that's my mindset as a son of God. Like, that's the mindset of sons. Like, we want to imitate Father. We want to imitate Daddy. That's who we want to imitate.
I
Like,
say
we're
that
called to
that's
imitate.
Powerful to see. You don't see that from men. You don't see that from a masculine man. Just saying, I'm a lover. And you ain't gonna outlove me. You don't tend to see that as other men, so you don't even have that model before you to know that it's okay to do that.
It's not promoted as a badge of honor. Like when
It's
I
a
heard him
weakness.
say
It's a
it,
weakness.
I'm like, man, hold on.
Like,
Wait a minute, you ain't gonna be better. And now I'm gonna start saying foolish. No, I'm a better lover than you are. No, but it's not considered a badge of honor, right? Yeah. It's the provider, protector, but at the heart of it is identifying, as we were saying, as the Imago Dei, the original intention of why you were here. I would want to touch on something that you said about the leading. And I'm just, because again, I was married for 20 years, so I have some experience, right? Right now, I need a woman that can lead, because with the responsibilities
Say
that
that
I
again.
carry
Slow
in my
down.
life every
remember what
day.
I said, hold on. You know one of my sayings. We got to treat this like it's a school zone. We got to slow down
Okay.
instead of speed through so people can hear what you just said. Say that again.
Listen, I need a woman in my life that can lead.
Okay.
Like, I'm depending on you. To that point, the sense, why I'm saying this, and I'm going to merge ours, the sense of peace that I have, that I can be like, whatever you say, I'm going to follow. Because I trust who you are, what you're designed for, and your purpose in this marriage. That is so freeing to a man that every day has to go out there and fight. So I need you to be the leader in this for me. So I look forward to it. And you'll be like, yeah, he's not, to that point, don't worry, I'm just going to tell him he's going to do it. And to me, for some people, like, she tells you what to do, you know how freeing that is? Do you know how freeing that
no,
is?
it's liberating. Like, I was doing a podcast last night, and we were talking about, the subject matter was, we got a Wonders Wives challenge. We call it Wonders Wives. And I was breaking down the components and the characteristics of a Wonders wife. And the podcast host, I was just saying to him, like, the liberation that comes to me as a husband to know that she functions from this space is liberating to know. Like, one of the most liberating things to a man can have is knowing that his spouse, his wife, is able to manage or handle or lead in this particular area. And like, I'm not even concerned with that.
Can I elaborate on that?
Yeah.
Well, it's going to get good.
He does
Let me
not
get a little
take-
closer. Hold on a second. Is this a competition right now? We're
Talk
about to
to us.
compete.
I'm about to tell a secret too.
Uh-oh.
When we first got married, I was paying all the bills, in the physically paying them. Not saying that, I mean, we have combined income.
Yeah, we get one account. Ain't no.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would pay all the
I'm not
bills,
there
and
yet,
he
but go
came to me with his chest out. I'm the man. I'm supposed to be paying all the bills and this and that. And I was hesitant.
My father
because
did that growing up. That's why I had the mindset.
his organization skills are not the best. That's not his thing. Organization is not his thing. And I hate late fees because it's a waste of money to me. Yes, I'm going to tell him. So I'm going to go back before that. Right before we got married, when I would go down to Miami, I would see shut-off notices for the utilities. And I'm saying to myself, why do you have shut-off notices and you walking around with like $1,000 in your pocket? He's like, oh, I just wait till they send me that, then I know I really have to pay it. And I was like, what? Like, who does that? Why are you paying late fees unnecessarily? It drove me crazy.
I told you I was a rascal. I told you my mind was just, it was all messed up.
Drove me crazy. So anyway, so when we got married, in my mind, I was like, I'm paying all the bills because we're not going to wait for disconnection notices and things if he's paying the bills.
And that's
Goes
to our credit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was self-aware of what my strengths are when it comes to the house or the organization or the structure of a marriage.
Right.
And Leslie was who she was, and so I still get laughed at today because I get direct deposit, and so a lot of times with people who I work with, they'll ask me, they'll say something, I'll be like, oh, I got to call Leslie, but you don't know how much. Leslie, like all of
Right.
that, like I don't
Yeah.
even like all of that is something she cares for, she takes care of. She lets me know, she gives me reports.
But I have to tell him this one part
Go ahead.
because I didn't finish the story. Okay. So he stuck his chest out. I'm the man. I'm supposed to be paying the bills. And I was like, okay, here you go. Here's the account information, blah, blah, blah. Because he doesn't know that either. So then, after about 2
You're supposed to pay the
months
bills, but you don't even know the account
of
information.
me not saying anything and twiddling my thumbs, wondering if the bills were paid, he came to me and he said, you know what? I'm going to let you pay the bills. This ain't my thing. And I was like, praise God.
That's
Oh
that
my
wisdom.
God, I was drowning over here saying, oh my gosh, did he pay the bills? But anyway, to make a long story short, he had self-awareness. He had, an epiphany that this was not his thing and I should probably be doing it. So in that way, that's like one of the more practical ways in which I lead. I know people always think about leading as in spiritual or whatever, but to me that is spiritual because he had enough wisdom to know he needs to hand that back over to me.
So, Los, I know you got a question. What I love about this, if we didn't hear this language, society would paint this differently, right? It's like, I'm giving you the administrative role, and they're not understanding that there's a space that he needs you to function as for him to function. So it is leading and not administrative, if that makes sense, right? Because there's always this, the old school cook clean, but no, let's take that concept out and saying there are functions and roles that actually have tremendous value. And the relationship won't function if we don't have that dynamic at play. But Los,
I can stir the pot now.
stir it.
My question here. They going to say, ooh, they ain't going to like me. But it's all right. If I hit you, I ain't trying to miss you. Why are there so many single women?
I don't know. I'm not single anymore.
How you gonna ask about single women at a married couples relationship conference? You stirring the wrong pot, bro. You got the wrong ingredients.
I'm saying. What's the answer out there?
I can tell you what some of my single girlfriends tell
All right,
me,
Leslie.
that the men don't step up.
Well, and I would say to that there's not a one reason why that's the case. We ain't got to go no around. There's not. You can't pinpoint one particular thing. Everything happens. The concept of convergence, right? Everything happens via the concept of convergence. So there's multiple reasons why from a society perspective, why we have. You can point to the population numbers and say why, because there's more women in the earth than men, right? The Bible even talks about there's going to be 7 women to 1 man. So, there's going to be more single women by the sheer numbers than there are men. But then when you get into the particulars of it, and it comes down to a woman knowing how to be a wife. See, the Bible says it like this: He that findeth the wife findeth the good thing, not a woman. There's a difference between an unmarried woman and a wife, right? You can be unmarried but still be a wife, or have the skills of a wife. And that's what wife speaks to, the skill level of a woman to know how to manage and love a man, or manage a household. So the biggest issue that we would want, that we address with our unmarried husbands or unmarried women and men, is we begin to develop the skills of wifery. Because a man who understands a woman and what he's looking for in a marriage, he's looking for a wife. That's an unmarried woman with the skills of a married woman. And when you look through society, you won't find that a lot. So that's just another contributing factor.
Sure. I want to elaborate on that because I'm going to ask the wives to step in on this. I had a friend, and we were talking one day. She's a single woman, right? And she said, my mother never taught me how to be a wife. And when I heard that, even though I'm not a woman, I was offended. Like, what are we talking about? I didn't understand the concept of being taught to be a wife, right? As I got older, I started realizing we're taught things whether we like it or not. You know, we watch. But if we can speak to, is there such a thing as teaching your daughters or teaching your sons to be husbands and wives? I literally could not speak to the concept because I was like, I don't understand this. But in hearing you speak, and seems to be a dynamic for wifery, but you know, I want to touch on that a little bit if you don't mind.
I think so I didn't have a father and mother that were married, so I didn't get to see what a wife looked like. I had to, and I'm still working on what a wife looks like and walks like and talks like and all of that. But I do know that walking in masculinity isn't for me, and I find that sometimes a lot of women are walking in their masculinity because they have to get up, they have to go make money, they have to do all the things, and so yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but yeah, I had to learn to walk in my femininity, and I operate very nicely there.
And to that point Jaleesa just made, that's because they've been culturally taught that femininity is a weakness. When femininity is just as powerful as masculinity, it's just a different form. You can function in a woman who functions in all of her femininity is just as powerful as a man who functions in all of his masculinity. But society will tell us that in order for you as a woman to be a strong woman or powerful woman, whatever they describe it, you have to take on masculine characteristics, right? And that's another reason, a part of the convergence complex that'll keep a woman single or unmarried, right? And you brought out a great point, bro, about the idea of teaching a husband the husbandry skills he needs, and a wife the wifery skills she needs. A lot of that teaching happens via culture. So we're big on establishing the culture of love. When the Bible talks about, for this cause shall a man leave and cleave, the idea behind that is for the husband to establish a culture that is empowering for the wife. Because in the Bible, in their days, when they got married, the wife or the daughter would leave the household completely on the word of the father. She had never met the people she was going to live with, spend the rest of her life with. So daddy said, listen, I want to talk to these people. They're good people. They got this, they got that. They set this up for you. And she went based off of the word of the father. Now, that's foreign to us today in our culture. But the idea of cleaving was, as the husband, now I'm to create a culture that's going to communicate protection, provision, communication, empathy, patience, meekness, long-suffering. I'm to establish that culture of love for her to grow in and, in a sense, be healed in, because you had to tear a daughter away from her father's umbrella protection. That was one of the saddest moments for her, but she got over it because daddy said they're going to take care of you. So part of the culture of a husband, or the responsibility of a husband, is to establish a culture that communicates these things even without saying it. So when it comes to the skills, my two sons, and if you can talk to them now, one of the things that I'm very affectionate in how I love. And so whenever we're driving, I'm always holding her hand, I'm doing something, and one of my sons, how old was Des when he did that? Was he?
Like maybe 12 or 13.
So he had been riding in the backseat watching me hold her hand the whole time. And then as he got older, he took a picture of it one day. And he said, and he posted it. Did he post it? And he posted it and he said, still holding her hand. And this was after all of these years. I'm communicating something to him about husbandry skills without ever saying it to him.
You got me. You got me.
Without ever saying it to him.
You got me with that one.
Right. So when it comes to communicating those skills, is what we see. The Bible says we behold as we become what we behold. Right? He's beholding a father loving his mother. And he's picking up on those skills without ever me having to communicate them to him. Now, there are times where I communicate them as well, but we're unfortunately, culturally, we're not taught the wifery skills nor the husbandry skills we need to be married. We used to argue about this in the locker room all the time. As you know, there's a big thing about black athletes having white women, right? There's a big thing, and it's even now black athletes, female athletes having white husbands. So we would go back and forth about this all the time in the locker room, and all of the black athletes would come up with this idea that, well, the black girls don't know how to treat in that space, like that's a kingly space, right? To become a professional athlete, that's a big accomplishment, and there's some financial rewards, there's social rewards that come with it, and the expectation is we get treated like royalty. I don't want to go home and get treated like a peasant. So in their mind, culturally, our girls, our women aren't taught that. But in the white culture, where the marriages seemingly last longer or look better, it's a little different. At the very least, they're gonna cater to you and they're gonna stay there through all your mess. Whereas black girls, we taught, listen, don't put up with none of that junk and whatever, however we're taught. But my point is, it's a cultural thing, right? And when you establish the right culture that marriage was designed to flourish in, you'll have a marriage that communicates to our children. It ain't even to our children. It's to my extended sons and daughters. Like, they see it. Like, all of the spiritual sons that we have in our life, like, they pick up on it as well. So it's the culture we establish as a husband, which we deem the culture of love, that communicates to husbands and to sons and to daughters how to be a husband and how to be a wife.
Yeah, I want to go somewhere else too, but if you spend any time with D and Leslie, beautiful couple. Beautiful. D is the man. He's a man's man in the room. And then you're saying, babe, what we doing? What we doing, babe? What we doing? You'd be like, go ahead, Leslie. Go ahead. But it's just a beautiful love feeling. Mm-hmm. I want to ask this, though, because I picked up something here. And Jean kind of alluded to the mentorship earlier. Where are we getting the mentors? Because I heard a marriage that wasn't functional or wasn't a good marriage that you said you saw, D. I heard, Leslie, you said, I saw a marriage that stayed together but wasn't a good one. I heard they weren't together. I heard they were together but weren't together past 25 years. Where are we getting the example from then? Because you guys are an example up here, but somehow y'all were able to do it without at least the parents being the example. Where are we getting this example from? This is open for everybody.
I'll kick it off then, right? Because I feel like a panelist too, right? This is the first time I've even heard the concept of mentors. It's usually a pastor talking to you, but a marriage. For me, as I've started reforming, right? Because I won't call it a failed marriage, but that marriage just continued. I'm getting ready to go into a new marriage, and I'm different now. What I failed in my previous one in terms of mentorship was I didn't understand the scripture enough. I truly, because I'm faith-based, I didn't understand it enough to understand how I needed to show up differently. Doesn't mean not be who I am, but understand who I am differently, right? Understand who I'm meant to be differently, and then look at the women in here and say, wow, I won't be complete until I have you. You are a necessity for me, like air and water. So now, for me, my only mentor, and I'm hoping now I'll have more, is the Word of God.
Right.
How do I have to show up for this person? Right? Because ultimately, my destiny is tied to this. And there's a shared purpose. So I say that for those who may not have ever knew what mentorship was and what's the first step of transformation. Because in our culture, you don't tell people that any mess is going on in your house. Because now, you know what I mean? my good friend used to tell me it's called bad eye, the Guyanese term, right? You don't want people to see you doing so well that they now try to want your downfall. So even this concept of mentorship, I'm just putting a different spin on it, was foreign to me, but I open it up to anybody.
So Leslie has this acronym that she created organically, and it gave me insight to something you said. I'm on, and as far as showing up in this space, I'm gonna talk about this, how we should show up in this particular space. But you have it. Tell them about that acronym. Then I'm
My
gonna.
KISSA acronym, I call them my knight in shining armor. So KISSA, K-I-S-A, is the acronym that I have for him, because no matter what is going on, I know I can call on him. And I joke around and I tell people, I don't care what's going on. My husband will come across the world to come and get me. And they kind of laugh, but I'm like jokingly, but I'm serious. No matter what's going on. I remember one day, I'll tell this real quick. We had gotten to a heated exchange, because we don't argue. A heated exchange. And he decided that he was just going to go to the mall with one of our spiritual sons, just because we weren't seeing eye to eye this one particular time. And once
I don't even remember what exchange was.
I don't know what it was, but I don't even remember now. That's how much we don't argue. But during that time when he went to the mall, my sister had called to inform me that my father had passed away, and my family is in Chicago. And it didn't even matter, although I knew that we just had this little heated exchange. He was the first person I called, and he answered the phone and said, hello, like, what's going on now? And I said, my dad just passed away. And he was silent and said, I'm on my way home. And that was all I needed. So I always call him my knight in shining armor, because no matter what, I know he's going to be there for me.
Yeah, I thought you was gonna tell them about the snow story.
Oh,
But that's cool.
snow
No, you
story?
ain't tell them that. No. So
I can tell the snow story.
Yeah, no, I wanted her to share that because
I got stuck, and I called him, and he came walking down Seneca Street with a shovel over his shoulder, and he was coming to dig me out the snow.
right.
All right, you win. You win. This competition's over.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Hey, you call AAA? Let me know when they get there.
No, I wanted her to share that because he just brought the point of showing up in a particular space. And to Carlos' question, like where did I get my concept of husbandry? And it was straight from the Word of God. After my new birth experience, the first thing I said to God was, I don't know how to be a husband. Like, Lord, I need you to show me how to be a husband. I need you to show me how to love Leslie like she needs to be loved. And so I just started from Genesis, and the Lord began to show me, because he relates to himself as a husband to Israel. And Christ relates to himself as a husband to the church. So all of the attributes and characteristics I saw him functioning in as a husband to Israel and as a husband to the church, that was my revelation. This is how I'm supposed to show up to my spouse. And when I got over to Ephesians, and what I like to call the audacious commandment for God to tell a husband to love his wife, for us to love our wives as he loved his, like just think about the magnitude of that. Yeah. Like think about for God to have that level of confidence in me, for me to say I can love her like he loved his church, like that's heroic. That's kissa. So now it's my mindset as I'm showing up in that space. That's the space I'm showing up in. Because I'm a son of God, and I want to be pleasing to God. So that's the space I'm showing up in. I'm showing up in that space that's heroic. I'm showing up in that space that's kissa. I'm showing up in that space as God showed up for Israel, as Christ showed up for the church. Like, that's the mandate that's on our life as husbands. And not to cheat the wives. The bottom of that chapter says, and wives, reverence your husbands. That's just as audacious.
Wait a minute. I just had sorry, Los. I just had an epiphany. When you said that, now explains why us men as husbands love words of affirmation from our partner.
100%.
Because it's spiritual based. I never connected the two. All right, sorry, go ahead, continues.
If you know the story of Abigail when she went and met David.
I do, but I don't know how many people out here do.
She spoke to the king,
She spoke to the king in it. She spoke to the king in David. If a wife learns and develops the skill to speak to the king and her husband, she can get whatever she wants.
Amen.
Whatever she wants, right? But that's a skill that has to be developed.
Yeah.
Loving is a skill, and if it's a skill, then it can be developed. If it can be developed, it can be mastered. That's what we call marriage. That's why we have a coaching class called Marriage Mastery. Because loving is a skill, husbandry is a skill, wifery is a skill associated with it. If you can master those skills, marriage will be easy.
Can I exchange Julissa a question? I see. You good, Rod? You turning your mic off?
I'm turning
Hold on.
this off.
So I just want to say, just going back to your question as far as how do you find mentors.
That's right where I'm going.
As you all can see, I called my dad to talk about being married. He said, call Demarius Johnson. And this is why. So, love you, D.
But it's important, though.
It's important.
Super important. And I'm super thankful that my dad, who is 70, married for 25 years, he knew he was on marriage number 3. And he's got a lot of wisdom, for sure. Yeah. But he was wise enough to say, this is the guy that you go to talk about how to master marriage.
So with that, in that space with you, and you also, Julissa, did you all know before marriage, this is something that I need to get mentorship in? Because a lot of people don't kind of have that mindset. You love them, like Dee said, I feel good about them, we're going to set up this date, we're going to get married. I don't think the mindset is usually there to say, let me find out somebody who's done this already.
Oh, yeah, no, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we said we're not going to get engaged until we do X amount of therapy sessions. That was the energy that we were on. We were like, I know I'm jacked up. She knew she was jacked up. Before we even got engaged, I said, we're going to do, I think it was like 10 sessions. Was it five sessions before we even got engaged. Then when we got engaged, that was when, we did the other counseling. So.
Now, what about you, Jay? Are there women that you look to, or was that intentional for you? Because you said you didn't see that a wife in your home.
Yeah, so I think very similarly to what you were saying, Coach Rye, earlier, is that growing up, you grew up not telling anybody your business. So that was very sacred to me on who I confided in. And also sometimes I find mentorship on YouTube of women who I admire, who have been married, and I listen to them. But as far as physical mentorship, there's a few women that I will go out and ask for counsel.
I just love that point, Roger. Go ahead and take it. I love that point because sometimes people do think it has to be, I know this person. I'll quote and say mentors. I ain't never met the person before, but I've listened to information from them so much, I feel like they have an influence on my life.
So I'm gonna tie everything together, but this question is really for you too. The goal is to become one, right? I used to tell people, you asking people who've been individuals for 18, 20, 25 years to now become one. And you only have heated conversations. Some of us have fights, right? Okay? So there's a journey that has to happen towards oneness. You don't start off at that. So how do you handle at early? Because while you're married, marriage is a mirror. That's the help, right? You start seeing things about yourself you've never seen before, and some things you don't want to see. You just don't have the option to put it under the bed or hide it anymore because this person is going to constantly reflect it. So while you're trying to learn yourself and be a partner and still function, how do you handle conflict? I'm going to
earlier stage.
Yeah, in the earlier stages, right? Because this is when you're probably seeing more of there's the discovery on the journey towards oneness. So I'm going to go over here and then.
Well, I want to say something.
All right, come on. You know what? We're rocking that. You see, this is my man, right?
Right, he said so.
It's me. It's me and Demarius. That's the new show. Black Dads.
We got to say this. So marriage reveals your maturity as a lover. That's what it reveals. The measuring tool for maturity, spiritual maturity, is how you love. Paul let us know that in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. When I was a child, I spake as a child, understood as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. The whole chapter is about how to love. He loved like a child at one point. So marriage reveals your level of maturity in how you love. All right, go, James.
D, so good. I hope this answers your question. So something that we do is we have a weekly, we call it a reset, every Sunday at 11 o'clock.
AM, PM?
AM. We try to do it after church if we're not bedside Baptist and sleeping in. But usually how it starts is How do you want me to show up? She'll say to me, how do you want me to show up for you next week?
Well, it starts with how was this week for you, and how did I show up, or how didn't I show up for you this week, and then we go into the following.
Yes. So then that allows for us, let's say we were having conflict, and answer your question. For us, sometimes it's best not to solve it right then and there. Right.
He'll also do this thing, like even today. He'll
I guess we're going to fight today.
Sorry, no.
No. Heated conversation. Heated.
Heated, right. Yeah, because we don't fight, D.
No.
We on this side.
And I got shovels to sell you, boy. I got a couple of shovels just in case.
Okay, we were running late today because my husband had a wardrobe malfunction. And so I don't like to be late. I will leave my house 30 minutes because you got to count 15 minutes for driving, 15 minutes for parking, the whole thing, right?
She's always early.
Always early. My husband is not always on time, but he's not always late. Today we were late. They said to be here by what time? 11. Okay, what time were we here?
All right, finish the story.
Okay, anyways.
We're not there, right?
Right. We still working on it. See, as y'all can see, live.
I love it.
So he said to me earlier today, we're going to leave soon. Like, something to the effect of, we're going to leave soon. And I stood really quiet. Because we were already running late. And I stood very quiet. And he said, what you feeling right now? And I said, I just don't like to be late. I don't want to be late. But it allowed, he knew me well enough to be like, there's something more. And I knew well enough not to say something because he was already dealing with the wardrobe malfunction. And I didn't want to add on to that. So he opened up the space for me he made it very safe because he wasn't angry with me. He also was dealing with something but wasn't angry. And allowed me the safe space and the opportunity to be like, I'm actually feeling anxious because we're running late and I don't like that.
Yeah, so I've learned to not say, like, in that moment, even today, I've learned, like, had I asked her, what's wrong with you? That would have been an issue. It would have been immediate energy shift on our way here.
Yeah.
I said, what you feeling?
I'm going to use that.
Yeah. I'm looking at her, I said, babe, what you feel? And it allowed her to say, well, I just don't like rushing. And I said, you're right. I'll be ready soon. And so,
I felt that.
Yeah. And so, like, we've learned, again, this is taking time. But we've learned, how do I even ask her in conflict? Because certain questions can trigger certain emotions and energy. It's not always what you say, but how you say it. But then should I ask her like this? No, go like that. Instead of me not saying anything, now we're just silently in the car. Now I can feel her energies off. And then that can turn into what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Get it together.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah.
So
But that goes back to what he's saying about it's a skill that can be mastered.
Skill.
But go ahead.
So those moments will happen in the present time, but then sometimes they will happen during our Sunday reset meetings where we'll circle back into something that happened or bothered us that we were able to, in this safe space, have the conversation of like, I didn't really like when you did this. Can we just talk about it real quick?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, my coaching point to Gene would be this, and as a coach, like one of the things that I love coaching more than the pastoral position is coaching is about motivation, it's about inspiration, it's about correction, it's about get in the game and do this. But the next level would be understanding that Jaleesa don't like to be late. She don't like to feel that anxiousness of being late. So be ready. You want to be there at 11 o'clock, be dressed at 10:45. I got this thing. I'm always waiting on folks.
So it's funny that he said that because I literally just said this on the way here. And she can tell you, on our way here, I said, babe, I need you to hold me accountable to making sure the next time we have an event, I have my clothes laid out the day prior. She says, I did. I said, did you? She said, yes. Earlier this week, I asked you, were you ready for Saturday?
And last week.
And I was like, you're right. My bad. I got to do better.
Right.
And she let me rock.
Right.
So was she the cause of the wardrobe malfunction?
No, I had woke up and I was like, I want to go blazer and pants, similar to how he did you wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I woke up and I was like, you know what? Let me go get a blazer and some slacks.
And then he came back with these pants that were really, like, they were moving.
I just had a bad malfunction.
He grabbed these safety pins and just pinned them.
And I was
said,
asking her for her
"Walk in
help.
here
It was
with
just,
pin
it was.
You lost
it
me
was
with
bad.
that.
Yeah.
But we are at the hour, and I know we have a certain arrangement with the space. So I just want to see if we could take one or two quick questions from the audience.
Leslie,
Los.
you had something you want to share, Leslie? Okay.
I wanted to say, so I think my mic went off. Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to say quickly, I know time reasons. We communicate differently, and we kind of figured out each other's language. So if I'm running late, Damaris will come through and say, I don't know what you're doing, but this ship about to start moving.
Wait, you said ship, right?
Ship.
All right, we just want to make sure.
S-H-I-P.
I got to use that.
So he's like, I'm leaving the port. You know, he'll say it humorously, where I won't. Yeah, he calls it love games, where I don't take the humor approach. I just take the passive approach. I'm going to go get in the car, and then he knows, oh, I better come on and go. So yeah, so that's how we handle it. But both of us are like, I'm a teacher, and he's a coach, a competitive athlete, and so on. We deal with things right then and there. So, because if something is wrong, I have to like correct my students right away. I teach algebra, so no, you can't bring 2x down. You have to wait. You have to deal with it right then and there. If you mess up right here, then the rest of the problem is wrong. He's he's a trainer too, and he won't allow people to do things incorrectly because they'll hurt themselves. So that he takes care of the problem right away, and that's our personality types, and we deal with that in our relationship as well. But we just have different ways of going about it.
That's awesome. So again, we got a few questions. Do any of the young folks want to ask any questions? You're like, no, right? Not getting married anytime soon.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not trying to get into this competition for lovers?
Okay, one of my questions is, my name is Ann. How do couples recognize when they're being proudful in a marriage? How do they know when they're being proudful, and how can they
When you say proud, are you saying
proudful? When they don't even, I don't think sometimes couples realize when they're being proudful. Yeah,
prideful?
Prideful.
So you mean as a husband or a wife, or the couple in general together?
Either one. Because they may be operating in pride, but they don't recognize it in themselves. They don't understand that they're being prideful.
So could prideful be part like ego and things of that nature involved in that? Read that in?
Well, at the core of pride is self, right? It's when you're focused on self, when everything is about you and your opinion. So Brother Rod said something earlier. When it comes to oneness is not trying to get Leslie to think like me, or Leslie trying to get me to think like her, unless she's thinking like God, or unless I'm thinking like God. Like we're like everything we when we first got married, everything was about what's the mind of God on this matter. What's the mind of God? What is God's mind on this? So when you think about humility from a faith-based perspective, humility is to take God's mind on a matter and not to lean to my own understanding, and not to esteem the way mama did it or daddy did it growing up. But if this is God's way, then pride is to take the opposite mind of God. So as a couple, as long as we're staying in the mind that God would have us to stay in as a husband and as a wife, and as it relates to marriage, then I would consider that as operating in humility. But now, if I got my way, I want to be a husband, she got her way, she want to be a husband, we got our way, we want to be married, and it's contrary to the way God would say it, that would be the ultimate expression of pride. So it's probably something they won't recognize. Somebody will have to identify from the outside in who understands what pride is and what humility is. And so that's how I would I guess answer that question is they probably won't know until somebody points it out and says, wait, what you think is humility is really pride, because you lean into your own understanding. That's not God's mind on that particular situation.
I also think there's a level of self-awareness, just going back to that someone has to have when they come into a marriage. Like, that's like baseline, right? Like doing the work on yourself and really understanding yourself and understanding that you do certain things out of like past trauma and wanting to like change that. I think there has to be a level of self-awareness when you come into marriage with somebody, so that you're able to identify like, oh, I'm being real prideful in that, because when you are self-aware in that capacity, you're able to identify like, maybe that wasn't right. And it may not be right then and there, but you're always able to come back to it later and have the conversation about like, okay, I was operating out of selfishness, out of ego in that space, and actually I really want to hear what it is that you're saying. Let's have this conversation now.
Yeah, and I would say for us, even this past week, I've had moments where I'd be like, was I tripping about this? Like asking her opinion. And a lot of times when I ask that, I actually don't respond. I just allow her to just kind of tell me what she thinks and then kind of sit with it. And so going back to the self-awareness, allowing myself to ask her, what do you think about this, as I'm learning to be less prideful?
So if I can piggyback, what I'm hearing is one of the signs you could tell someone's operating out of pride is if you don't hear them talking in self-reflection. So if the person you're with, you never hear themselves even ask themselves, what am I doing this? Then you kind of almost see how they approach life. And that can be what they would say a red flag.
Yeah, I think that alongside of asking your partner too.
Yeah.
Having that self-awareness within yourself and being self-aware, no, I may be off. Let me ask my mirror.
Right.
What
But
am
if
I
they're
doing?
not doing that, Los, and
Exactly.
we're going to be here all day.
You're right.
We got our first
You got a
young
young
person.
fella? Come
Let's
on.
go. I'm assuming you're young.
I am 23.
Okay.
How do you navigate the line between, because, you know, in relationships there's sacrifice and there's humility, but how do you navigate being too humble and too self-sacrificial where it's now a detriment to yourself because you love that person or that you care about that person that you want to do as much to help them or just, you know, be selfless about it, but not to the point where it's like you're killing yourself trying to love somebody else, you know?
Yeah, so a similar question just came up on the podcast that we were on, and I say it like this: whenever I encounter couples, all I need to know is two things: are you willing? Are you willing? And can you follow instructions? Right. So the scripture says, if you're willing and obedient, you'll eat the good of the land. If you're willing, it means you have a desire to be the husband God wants you to be, or to be the wife God wants you to be, and you can take instruction, then you can have the marriage you desire. Because I'm going to coach you into having that. But if you're not willing, now we got to have a different conversation. So what I would say in that situation, when you recognize the point that, oh, I'm loving you the way I'm supposed, but you still ain't willing to, okay, now we got to stop. Now we got to talk different. Once you recognize a person not willing to be what they need to be, in spite of, as you guys just pointed out, the scripture says, examine yourself to see if you be in the faith. So as a husband, I'm always examining, am I loving the way I'm supposed to love? Am I showing up the way I'm supposed to show up? And if I'm doing that, but there's a response that's not reciprocating that, oh, you're not willing. Or you being stubborn. Okay, so now we got to have a different conversation.
We got to wrap it up, but what I'm hearing in another show is some real red flags, not just what your red flags are, but biblical red flags, right? So if you're showing up and the person's not willing to show up, you got to be man enough to say, this is not worth the investment, right? With that being said,
listen, we had a great time. Thank y'all for hanging out with us live in the audience. Thank you for been watching in and listening in. This is Black Dad Unfiltered. I'm Carlos V. Spencer.
I'm your boy, Coach Rod. Let's go, let's grow, let's get it.
Y'all be blessed. Have a good one.